I didn't see it coming. We were in the middle of dinner, her favorite Thai takeout, soft jazz in the background, the same little rituals that had become part of our routine. It was a Tuesday night, nothing special, just two people sharing a quiet meal after a long day. She was picking at her noodles when she said it. I don't think I can do this anymore. Just like that. No warning, no build-up. Like she had just remembered to take the trash out. I blinked. What do you mean? She didn't look angry, just exhausted. Not physically, but emotionally. Like she'd been carrying something for far too long, and tonight, she finally couldn't pretend anymore. You're not emotionally available. Josh, I feel like I'm dating a wall. I talk, you listen, but it never feels like you're with me. I stared at her, the words hanging in the air like smoke I couldn't wave away. Not emotionally available. What did that even mean? I was listening. I always did. I never interrupted her, never dismissed her feelings. I was there, right? I didn't cheat, didn't lie, didn't yell. I thought I was doing everything a good partner was supposed to do. But apparently, it wasn't enough. You're saying I'm emotionally unavailable. I asked, confused, defensive. She nodded, not unkindly. It's like you're here, but not really here. I open up to you, and you nod or say something logical. But it's like you're a therapist, not my partner. You never feel with me. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words got stuck. All I could manage was, I don't know what you want me to say. She gave a small, bitter laugh. That's the problem, Josh. You never do. That sentence hit me like a punch to the chest. She didn't yell. She didn't insult me. But that sentence cut deeper than any argument could have. And then she stood up, walked to the front door, and slipped on her jacket. I'm going to stay with Maya for a few days, she said. I need space. No door slammed behind her. No tears. Just the sound of her keys jingling softly as she walked out of our apartment and into the night. And I just sat there, at a table meant for two, staring at two half-eaten boxes of pad thai and a woman-shaped void across from me. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was loud. It echoed through the living room, bounced off the pictures on the wall, crawled under my skin. I kept replaying her words in my mind. You're not emotionally available. You never feel with me. What did she mean? I thought being calm and rational was a good thing in a relationship. I thought keeping your emotions in check meant you were mature. I thought not getting overly worked up over everything made you a rock. Wasn't that what women wanted? I'd always been the level-headed one, the fixer, the steady boyfriend. I prided myself on being dependable, not volatile. I was the guy you could count on, the guy who would drive you to the airport at 4 a.m., who remembered to water the plants when you were away. And yet, somehow, that made me the bad guy. I opened my laptop later that night and Googled, what does it mean to be emotionally unavailable? I wasn't ready for the answers. Every article felt like it had been written about me. Detached, numb, avoids vulnerability, shuts down during emotional conversations, focuses on logic over feelings. The words hit too close to home. I wanted to close the tab and pretend I hadn't read any of it, but I couldn't, because even though I didn't understand her completely, I did love her, and something inside me knew that if I didn't figure this out, I wasn't just going to lose her. I was going to keep losing people, over and over again, without ever knowing why. I called my friend Marco that night. He was probably the only person I could talk to about something like this. He'd known me since college, and even though we didn't talk about feelings much, he'd seen me at my best and worst. She said what? He asked after I told him the story. That I'm emotionally unavailable. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, well, you kinda are. Ouch. Excuse me, I said, trying to laugh it off, but not really. I don't mean that as an insult. Man, you're not the type to open up. You've always been, I don't know, private, closed off. I share stuff, I protested weakly. Yeah, about movies or work, not about you. I've known you for 8 years, and I don't think I've ever heard you talk about your childhood, or your fears, or anything deeper than which Marvel movie was overrated. That one strung, because it was true. I'd spent my whole life talking around my emotions. I could be charming, funny, even thoughtful, but raw, vulnerable. No, never that. That night, I sat on the couch, phone off, lights dimmed, thinking about her, about how she used to look at me with that softness in her eyes, how she'd always reach across the table to touch my hand when she told me something personal, and how I just nod, offer a solution, change the subject, not because I didn't care, but because somewhere deep down, I didn't know how to show that I did. I wasn't taught how to hold feelings. I was taught to bottle them up. In my family, you didn't talk about emotions. You handled things. You didn't cry, didn't complain, didn't make a scene. I realized, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't being emotionally unavailable on purpose. I was just never allowed to be emotionally available. And now it might have cost me the only woman I'd ever truly wanted to let in. I didn't sleep that night. It wasn't that I couldn't, it's that I didn't want to. Sleep would mean shutting my mind off. And for once, I was trying not to. I spent the early hours scrolling through old messages from her, texts I'd barely skimmed at the time. Things like, rough day, I just need a hug and someone to listen. I don't want advice, I just want to vent. Sometimes I feel like I'm alone in this relationship. Back then, I thought I was listening. I thought being quiet while she spoke was enough. But I never actually heard her. I started realizing that there had been signs, not just in her messages, but in her face, her eyes, her sighs after she'd open up, and I'd respond with something logical or detached. That next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called my mom. It was a weird call, not because we don't talk, we do, semi-regularly, but because I didn't know how to start the kind of conversation I wanted to have. Hey, Mom, I said, trying to sound casual. Do you think I was an emotional kid growing up? She paused. Why do you ask? Just wondering. I mean, did I cry a lot? Talk about feelings, stuff like that. Another pause. Well, you were a good kid. Independent, quiet. You didn't make a fuss like your brother. You handled things. I smiled bitterly. There it was. I handled things. I'd always been praised for that. When I scraped my knee and didn't cry, I was strong. When I lost a pet and didn't show much emotion, I was mature. When Dad left and I just went back to my homework, everyone said, Josh is so level-headed. But now I wondered, was I ever allowed to not be? After I hung up, I sat with those thoughts for a long time. I started remembering moments I hadn't thought about in years, like when I was 8 and fell off my bike, bleeding from both knees, and my mom told me, big boys don't cry. Or when I was 13 and got dumped by my first crush, and my older cousin laughed and said, don't be a wimp, move on. Or when I was 15 and overheard my uncle say, Josh is the kind of kid who doesn't let emotions get in the way. That's a man. I didn't realize it at the time, but all those little moments shaped me. They taught me that emotions were a liability, that vulnerability was weakness, that being a man meant being silent, composed, stoic. So I built walls, not consciously, but carefully, one brick at a time. And by the time I met her, I had no idea how to tear them down. She was the opposite of me. That was probably why I fell so hard. She was expressive. When she was happy, she laughed with her whole body. When she was sad, she didn't hide it. She felt things openly, fully, loudly. At first, I admired it. Then I got uncomfortable. I remember once, early in our relationship, she cried during a movie. Nothing major, just a heartfelt scene about a mother and daughter reconciling. I remember feeling awkward, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I reached for a tissue and said, it's just a movie. She looked at me, eyes glistening, and said, I know, I just feel things deeply. I nodded, said nothing, and patted her knee. It was probably the wrong move, but I didn't know how to sit in someone else's pain, because I didn't know how to sit in my own. That night, I journaled. I never journal. I've always thought it was a little too self-help guru for me, but something in me needed to get it out, and talking still felt too foreign, so I wrote. I wrote about the bike crash, the breakup, the moments when I should have cried, but didn't. I wrote about my dad leaving, and how everyone told me I was the man of the house now, like I wasn't still just a scared 10-year-old kid. I wrote about how I learned to nod, to stay quiet, to never burden anyone with what I was really feeling. And most of all, I wrote about her, how she tried, how she waited, how she'd sit on our couch and say things like, "I just wish you'd let me in," while I stared at the floor, feeling the words, but not knowing how to let them show. Tears finally came, quiet ones, the kind that sneak up on you and fall without warning. And for the first time in a long time, I let them. The next day, I booked a therapy session, not because I thought it would fix me, but because I realized I didn't know where else to start. It wasn't just about getting her back anymore. It was about understanding why I was so afraid to feel, why I kept people out, why I'd built this version of myself that looked stable on the outside, but was really just scared of falling apart. Therapy wasn't what I expected. I thought it would be someone analyzing me like I was a puzzle, asking me how I feel about everything until I got annoyed and quit. But it wasn't like that. It was slower, gentler. In the first session, the therapist, Janet, just asked, "Why are you here?" I paused. For once, I didn't try to be clever. I just said, "Because someone told me I don't know how to feel." And I think she was right. Janet nodded like she'd heard that before. And maybe she had. Week after week, I showed up. We didn't always talk about my ex. Sometimes we talked about my childhood. Sometimes we talked about silence, about how I learned to shut down instead of speak up, about how I mistook emotional self-control for strength. I thought I was being solid. I told Janet once, like calm in the storm. Isn't that what everyone wants? She tilted her head. But were you calm or were you numb? I didn't know how to answer. A few months into therapy, something strange happened. I started opening up to people, not just Janet. I called my younger sister one evening. We hadn't talked in ages, just the usual holiday catch-ups, maybe a meme now and then. But that night, I called her out of the blue. She sounded surprised, then cautiously happy. "Hey, what's up?" And for once, I didn't say nothing much. I told her I'd been doing therapy. I told her about the breakup, about how I'd always thought I had everything under control. But now I realized I was kind of lost. There was a pause. Then she said, "Josh, I always felt like I had to be the emotional one in the family, like there wasn't room for both of us to fall apart." I nearly dropped the phone. We ended up talking for hours. The more I talked, the more I realized something. Emotional availability wasn't just about feeling things. It was about sharing them, letting others in, being honest, even when it felt messy or uncomfortable. I had spent years hiding behind being fine. Fine is safe. Fine doesn't scare anyone. Fine keeps people at a distance. But fine also gets lonely. One evening, I got a text from my ex. It was just 3 words. "Hey, how have you been?" My heart raced. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to pour out every insight I'd had in therapy, hoping she'd see that I'd changed. Instead, I replied simply, "I've been growing, you." We talked a bit, nothing heavy, no expectations. A few weeks later, we met for coffee. Just as friends, we said. But it felt different this time. Lighter somehow. She laughed more. I listened better. At one point, she said, "You seem more here, like you're actually with me, not just beside me." That hit hard, because she was right. We didn't get back together. Not officially, not yet. But we talked, a lot, sometimes about the past, sometimes about nothing, and slowly, I started showing her parts of myself I'd never shared before. I told her about the therapy, about the journaling, about crying in the dark the night she left. She didn't rush to forgive. She didn't owe me that. But she listened, and that was enough. One night, we were sitting on a park bench, watching the sun dip below the trees. She turned to me and asked, "Do you know the first time I realized you were shutting me out?" I shook my head. "It was after I told you about my panic attacks. I was vulnerable, terrified, and you just said, 'You'll get through it, you're strong.'" I flinched. "I know you meant well," she added, "but I didn't want strength. I wanted softness. I wanted someone to sit with me in the fear, not fix it." I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't know how to do that then." She smiled gently. "But you do now." I nodded. "I'm learning." And I am. Learning, that is. Learning that emotional availability isn't a switch you flip. It's a practice, a choice you make every day to show up, even when it's uncomfortable. It's not about having all the right words. It's about being present, about saying, I don't have the answers, but I'm here. It's about unlearning decades of be strong, messaging, and realizing that real strength is in vulnerability. Today, I still go to therapy. I still journal. I still catch myself wanting to say, it's fine when it's not. But now I pause. I breathe. I say, actually, it's been rough. And trust that the people who care will hold space for that. And when someone opens up to me, I don't jump to advice. I just listen. Because sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them feel without judgment. If you're watching this and wondering whether you might be like me, emotionally distant, not because you don't care, but because you were never taught how to show it, let me tell you something. You can change. It's not too late. Start small. Start with honesty. Start with yourself. Because being emotionally available doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Thanks for watching this story. If it resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you've ever struggled with opening up, remember you're not broken. You're just healing, one truth at a time. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that don't just entertain, but also help us grow. You're not alone, and you're allowed to feel.